How many of you are planning on getting bees? Okay, at least half, and more than that even. Okay, so I've been keeping bees for 14 years, and when I first started with bees, when I got my first bees, I thought, okay, so I'm going to do this organic because our farm is organic, and I couldn't find anybody. Now, 14 years ago, bees were not in vogue. It was before colony collapse disorder and all this stuff, and so when I started keeping bees, it seemed ridiculous to me that I couldn't find some place to learn where I could do it organically. And in my own local bee club even, they'd say, you're going to try to do it organic, you're going to kill all your bees, they're all going to die. They need chemicals to live. And then CCD hit, and it was even worse. You need even more chemicals to live. So I was pretty much left on my own. I didn't have any mentor, and I couldn't find anybody. And remember, 14 years ago, the internet was nowhere near as strong as it is now. I was on the internet, but there weren't even bee discussion groups there then. So I worked with the bees for about probably half a dozen years anyway, and I would hang out with my bees and I'd say, I'm going to give you the best home I possibly can, but I know nothing. I absolutely know nothing. And what I would just stand out there. Now I realize I was observing them, but it didn't seem like that. It was just I was hanging out with them, and I would watch, and I'd say, I'm willing to do anything, dear bees, but geez, you got to give me a few hints here, because I want to take care of you the best way possible, but I don't know how to. And so I spent probably a good 6 years it's like my way of praying with the bees, saying, I want you to be healthy, and I'll work as hard as I can to do it. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned from a lot of mistakes. And then one day I was laying in bed in the morning, and I was in like that place like halfway between awake and asleep. And I was just laying there, and I had this little voice in my head. I can't even call it meditation, because it wasn't that. I was just being centered, and I would center myself before each day on the farm. Bless everyone who's here, and I hope that today's a good day for everyone. And I got this it was like a little voice that was talking in my head that was telling me something about the bees. And so I had a notebook next to the bed, and I just quickly wrote down this information. And I said to Joseph, this is really weird. I have never read anything about bees that's about this, but gosh, it really strikes me as something that's true. I decided that I should write down all this stuff that I was learning from the bees, and it ended up becoming a book. I self-published it. How many of you feel yourselves to be highly intuitive about things? Oh, good. That's good. And as a farmer, man, oh man, you use that all the time. A cow can't tell you when there's an issue, but you just kind of get a feeling you should go check on something. And I find that to be true so many times. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about clean and natural beekeeping. We've always been chemical free. We always will be chemical free. I just don't see any reason to battering them that way. And you're bucking the conventional beekeeping these days when you do this, because so much of it is still people who believe that you can't raise bees unless you use chemicals. And my belief is if you don't stop using the chemicals, the bees are never going to evolve to live with their pests and predators and diseases and things. I have had issues in my own hives where something has happened, and it's been like a deformed wing virus or Varroa mites or something comes in, and I'll tell you what I really do. I pray with them. I just say, I hope you guys make it. My heart is here with you. I don't mean in a religious sense. I don't have a specific church I belong to that has that. It's just a natural thing you do with something you want to help survive. And every once in a while a hive dies. In the initial days that I did this, a lot of my hives died. But the more years I go along, the more hives survive. And I found that when there is the classic Varroa mites or deformed wing virus or whatever else, that if you let the bees go, if you trust them and you give them good food and healthy conditions, most of them can make it through. So I'm going to encourage you to let that happen, and know right up front that, and yes, you will lose hives. Some of the things that you end up doing will be right though. and the bees survive better. So I have my own, I live in a rural area. There's not a lot of beekeepers around me. There's not a lot of agriculture around me. There's a lot of old farms that are no longer in agriculture. So I've been blessed to be able to do this with my bees and not have to be fighting against people spraying Roundup on the property next door to me or things like that. Now I do have that also, but my bees generally do survive it. Now this is me in the beginning. I put on my full hazmat suit. I wouldn't say I was terrified. I was fascinated by them, but I was really afraid of being stung. And I had zero experience and no one to go to. And then it kind of turned into this. So this is a few years ago, and you know, I've long since lost my fear of them. I still treat them with tremendous respect. But you can see they're not getting tangled up in me. This is a swarm moving into, we moved these, this part of a tree that's hollow into the front yard, and the tree had been cut down. It was 100-foot Doug fir. This section was about 60 feet up and it had a beehive in it. When it hit the ground, the logger then started cutting it up and he went, oh gosh, you got bees in it. So those people called me up. I took this section, brought it home, but the fall was too hard on the hive that was in it, and the queen probably died and the rest of the bees died about 3 days later. But about 2 weeks after that, in the spring, I was walking out the front door with my friend Susan, who also keeps bees, and she said, I hear a swarm. And I said, I wonder where they are. And they came right up over the top of the garage and funneled themselves right over to this tree and chose the tree. Cleaned it all out, threw everybody who was dead out, threw out the dead comb and started over. So what fun. And there are all different kinds of hives, but this is my favorite. I never get to see inside. I don't harvest any honey from it. I just like having bees. And I have them, if I could say any intention for them, is to pollinate. Pollinate everything you can, bees. Go have fun. Do a good job on it. Because it was cut into sections, I actually got to see the inside. And it's about this high, then about that big. And that's actually ideal for hives to be, they found, Thomas Seeley just did some studies this year that lo and behold, smaller hives work better. So a lot of my hives tend to be, I'm not looking to maximize honey production. I just want healthy bees. And I want to do my share to create healthy bees, create an environment that lets the bees be healthy. So this is my cardinal rule, put the bees' needs first. As long as I'm putting the bees' needs first, I know I'm going in the right direction. And for that reason, you know, the bees, so many times I have a little thing that ticks me off when I hear, yeah, we have to protect the bees because they make honey. It's like, no, they don't make the honey for the humans. That's not why they're doing it. We have to protect the bees because they're a part of nature. They're an important part of nature.